Alright guys, so we are moving on to the right hand side of the painting here, and we're using these purples to depict the Maybank building right here. So you can see that I'm actually using this dark purple to help me with doing this top part of the Maybank building, and just trying to make sure that we have this entire area covered. And I use this dark purple and some of the darks as well to paint the different sections of the building, as you will see later. So right now, just making sure that we have this purple that is covering this entire area, and just making sure we're also leaving white the middle part, which we fill in with that yellow tone later on. Right, so right now I'm just using the yellow paint to combine this part with the purple, as you can see right there, because we have, you know, all these lights that is coming out from the middle part, the Maybank kind of a sign there. And again, leaving white the middle part first, and now I'm using this yellow. As you can see, it's combining very well with the purple surrounding it. So we have all these, you know, different kinds, this combining and this blending of colors. As you can see, they are blended together with that soft edge. Right, so we can move on to the painting of the rest of the areas. Right, so I'm actually using the brush to help me with painting this line. And we're going to use all these lines that will separate all these different sections, as we'll see later. And just showing you how I actually do all these lines, that, you know, we have this diagonal line that comes from the left hand side, and then we have this line that is almost straight for the middle part, this longer part, and then we have this line that goes diagonally down, and that is the shape, to show the shape of the Maybank building. So right now, just using the brush to kind of like make sure we have the front part being done, and then we have the different kinds of purples to paint these different sections of the Maybank building, right? So you can see the tones of the purple are changing. Those purples that I use for the left hand side is darker than the middle part, and then we have the use of all these, you know, yellows to combine with the purples, and that will give us some light purples, as you can see, for those areas at the bottom part. So I'm using my brush to kind of like depict the dark areas for these lines, and just trying to make sure that we are leaving white those white areas in the middle for the lights that are coming out. Again, using those light colors like yellow and blues to depict the, you know, all these different kinds of blues and, you know, light colors. And so using the brush, I'm just trying to make sure that we have all these different browns that is used to depict the building on the right. So if I'm not wrong, this is the UOB building. Okay, just sorry, I think that's the OCBC building. Not very sure which building this is. So I use purple and light brown to paint the background of this building, and we have this dark browns to depict the top. Right, so we have the leaving white again to show the lighter areas, and you'll see that I'm actually using the dark brown to kind of like combine with the rest of the lighter colors later on to show the lighting effect that is coming out from the different parts of the building. And this building is pretty special because we will need to depict the background first. The first layer to depict the background first, which are made up of different browns and different lights, and then later on we will fill in with the windows, which are, you know, on top. The dark windows will be painted on top of the layer that we just painted, and some of the windows will be also left white to show the light that is coming out from those windows, right? So it's a little bit kind of complicated to paint this building right here, but we have all these different techniques that will help us. You know, first we are going to paint the dark brown areas for the first layer, and then we will paint the darker windows on top once it is dry, but we will need to leave out white spaces for the light that is coming out from the other windows. So just trying to depict all these different browns first, and we have all these, you know, different brown sections, and we have all these, you know, lights and all these very nice kind of shapes to depict those lights that I just mentioned. And we have again all these very nice kind of shapes to represent all those lights, and again using the yellows to combine with to depict those light areas. It is not combining with the rest of the browns because they are already dry, and again using all these light colors to depict the light areas here, and that will give us some very nice kind of light browns and light yellows to depict those light areas. Again, as I mentioned, we have some parts of the building that are left that are, you know, pretty light, and then later on we will use those dark paint to paint those windows on top, and that will give us a very nice effect. Right, so I used dark brown squares to paint the windows here. Okay, so making sure that this area here is dry before we actually add on the dark brown kind of squares. So I'm just trying to use the brush to help me with all these brown squares and all these, you know, small little squares that you're seeing right now, and we'll have all these squares that are becoming smaller in size as we move inwards, and you can see that the sizes are largest when they are on the right hand side. And so we have, you know, again all these different kinds of shapes and dark brown shapes and light brown shapes, dark brown shapes mostly to depict the dark kind of windows. As we move towards the left hand side, where we have, you know, all these nice kind of windows, and it is actually depicting all these small windows and larger windows to the edge. Right, so these are some very good ways in order to depict windows, and we can paint the background layer first before we actually move on to paint the lighter the windows, which are darker, on top once the first layer is dry. Right, so using my brush, just trying to make sure we have all these lines and all these different kinds of windows that you're seeing right now that are being depicted on top of the first layer that we just did. And you can see that right now you can see a little bit of how this part is formed. And so as I mentioned earlier, the painting of this building is a little bit different from the rest because we will need to paint the first layer first before adding in all these different windows on top. Right, so we have all these light browns, we have all these, you know, yellow colors and light brown colors, and, you know, we have again light browns and yellows combined to form the first layer, and some browns and yellows combined also as well. So we have to wait until this layer is dry before we will move on to the painting of those windows on top. Right, so you can see the painting of the first layer is actually leaving white some areas which are showing the lights that are coming out from the window, from the building. Right, so just repeating the same process for the parts at the bottom, and you can see right now the OCBC building is coming alive with all these different kinds of lights and different windows for the first layer and the second layer of windows, and they are working together very well with all these different kinds of things that are going on. Right, so now moving on to the Merlion area, so just painting this area which actually shows the tree, but here in this tree we have the depicting of this light that is shining out from that tree, and right now I'm just trying to show you how I depict this light. So I use light yellow and the leaving white method to paint the light behind the water fountain. So if this water fountain that is, you know, from the Merlion, which is right there, and you can see that the water is actually forming a very special kind of effect on the light that is partially shining through the fountain. So we are using the leaving white method, which means that we will need to leave white this middle part which depicts the light, and then we will kind of like need to smudge and to blend the surrounding areas in order for a smooth transition from the light area to the dark area. So we will have these dark greens painted on first, and then we will use the orange or the yellows to kind of like show the surrounding kind of light. Okay, so right now I'm using this yellowish green to paint the surrounding, making sure that I'm leaving white the middle part, and we will have all these, you know, different areas. Okay, so now using the brush to kind of like show the blending, softening of the edges when we actually go into the light, so that there's a smooth kind of soft transition between the light area into the dark area. So that's the objective of using the brush and using the using the water to help us with the blending and the softening effect, and that will give us a very nice kind of light effect. Okay, as you're seeing right now, the light is kind of like showing very well with this very nice kind of blending and transition. And right now, just using the brush to help us with the rendering of the light that you can see right now is actually coming out pretty nicely with the blending of the brush. Right, so now moving on to the areas which are behind the water fountain, and you can see right there they are lighter in color because of the effect of the water. You actually seeing through the water to view all these things that we see, and that will give us some light tones. So just trying to make sure that we have this the effect of the water fountain splashing into the water, so this area is being left white. Again, using my brush to kind of like paint those items behind the water fountain, and just trying to make sure that we have all these different kind of browns and all these softening and blending kind of effect. And now we are moving on to the Merlion itself. So I use brown strokes and leaving white to depict the bright parts of the Merlion. So most of the parts of the Merlion here are actually bright, are actually light because of the effect of the light. At night we have these lights that are shined onto the Merlion, and so we are using these brown kind of strokes to only depict the darker areas of the Merlion. So we have all these, you know, dark strokes that are used to depict the darker parts of the Merlion, and then we will make sure that we have all these different colors and different browns and different light colors to depict this part of the Merlion. Alright, so we will need to leave white some areas, and using the brush I'm just trying to use all these lines and all these colors to depict the Merlion, and just trying to make sure that we have this line, some light brown lines to depict the top part of the Merlion, the head, with all these curved lines to depict the mane of the Merlion. And again, as I mentioned, using very light browns in order to just show the darker parts, whereas the other parts are being left white because we will have to have the effect of the light that is on the Merlion. So we are using all these, you know, light brown tones to depict the details of the Merlion, and that will give us this very nice kind of effect. Right, so using the brush, just trying to make sure that we have all these shapes in. So the Merlion here is actually a symbol of Singapore, where, you know, because of the history, this structure right here is actually representing Singapore, and it is near to the Bay Area, and this symbol right here is actually a combination of a lion's head and the body of a fish. And so this Merlion is located in Marina Bay Sands area. We have Marina Bay area. We have another Merlion in Sentosa, but right here we have this Merlion. As you can see right now, I'm just using some lines to depict some of the features of the face of the Merlion, the nose, the eyes, and the mouth, and using some of the lines to depict the mane, you know, the kind of curved structure. And right now just using some of those lines to show the body of the Merlion. and using my brush to kind of like show those scales. Right, so I used dark blue to paint the tiles that are underneath the Merlion. Right, so now you can see the Merlion is done by leaving white some of the areas on the right hand side, and below the Merlion we have all these dark colors like dark blues. We have all these different dark colors that are used to depict the bottom part here of the Merlion, and we'll have colors like dark browns and dark blues and all these different dark colors that will give us some very nice kinds of darks that will show all these tiles and all these details that are below that Merlion, and that will give us some very nice kinds of variations and very nice kinds of design and very nice kind of transition between these different areas. And we will use different darks to depict all these different colors and different kinds of areas, and that will give us all these very nice kind of visual effect when we use all these shapes. And again, you can see right there on the left hand side, I'm actually using a lighter kind of blue, lighter kind of gray, which is a little bit bluish, to depict some of these tiles. And when we look at the reference picture, we have all these different colored tiles, but mostly blue, to depict the tiles that we see right here. And so we'll have all these different colors and all these different blues and different kinds of colors and browns and dry brush technique and a little bit of all these strokes to show the tiles that you're seeing right now that are being depicted and being painted. And again, using all these different shapes and the leaving white to show all these changing colors within that tile. Right, so now that part is dry, so we can use some of the brush and use some light colors to fill in those areas that were left white, and this will give us a very nice effect right there. And we'll have some blues and we'll have some lines to show those tiles on the right hand side. Right, so now moving on to the area that is below those tiles. So using my brush, just trying to make sure, and also some color pencils to make sure that we have all these different shapes to represent all these different details at the bottom part of those tiles. And we are now moving on to the painting of this dark area, which is near to the water itself. Okay, so we have some bricks here. So this area below those tiles are this dark brown area, which is depicted using my brush, just trying to show all these dark browns and leaving whites for those lines that actually show the separation between those bricks. And of course we have different browns to represent the dark browns and the light browns and the yellowish browns. So we have orange, yellow and dark brown to paint all these bricks below, and that will give us some very nice kind of a visual effect when we have all these different kinds of warm colors that are being combined together. And again, just using my brush to kind of like combine all these different colors and all these different kinds of shapes. Again, you can see I'm actually using different sizes, different shapes of different sizes to depict all these different areas. And so just using my brush, just trying to make sure that we have all these different colors. And you can see right there on the right hand side we have this lighter kind of yellowish orange, whereas on the left hand side we have some darker browns, and that will give us some very nice kind of blending effect between these two different areas. Right, so just moving on to the blending of these different light areas and darker areas, and you can see right there on the right hand side it's pretty bright because of all these light colors, and just combining them with some dark strokes on the right hand side. And I'm just trying to make sure that we have all these different strokes and different lines to depict all these lines that show the separations between the tiles. And again, using the brush to kind of like show we have all these orange and all these browns and all these light yellows, and that will give us some very nice, transitions and very nice combinations of colors between the orange and the dark brown. So that will give us, some very cool kind of color transitions inside that same area, which is the bricks that is depicted by all these brown tones. Right, so I also use some gray tones on the left hand side to combine with the browns, and that will give us some very nice transitions. And again, using my brush, just trying to make sure that we have all these gray tones and brown tones, and just trying to make sure that we have all these colors in, and all these changes in terms of colors, hues and tones and sizes of the bricks, and leaving whites. So again, using a combination of all these different techniques and different kinds of painting kind of technique in order to show all these bricks that you are seeing right now. And this area on the extreme left hand side of these bricks is actually yellow, where we have all these yellow bricks that are being depicted, and this near to the light source, and this also partially behind the water fountain, and so we can see that they are lighter. So right now you can see some of the areas are not blended well yet, but as you'll see later on, we will try to blend all these different colors and all these different layers, and that will give us some very nice kind of blending technique as we combine these dark browns with some grays and some yellows, and that will give us all these very nice combinations of the different colors. So using my brush, just trying to make sure that we have all these areas that are being covered, and just making sure we are leaving white those areas that will be filled in later. And just using my brush, just trying to have all these browns, all these dark browns, and all these different areas, just trying to leave white those lines that you're seeing, because we will need to fill in those lines later on, and there will be the separations between those bricks. Right, so we're almost done with this area, just trying to fill in all these different areas and different kinds of colors for the bricks. I'm just trying to use my brush to very quickly fill in all these colors, light colors, and you can see right there I'm just using the brush and using some yellows to fill in those areas that were left white. So these are the light areas that show the separation between those bricks, and we'll try to combine them better later. As you can see right now, it's pretty kind of unfinished, but we will use the brush to capture all these different kinds of colors and different kinds of shapes, and we have browns and so on and so forth. And so we have the use of this brush to help us with the painting of the darks, okay, for the lines. So some lines will be dark and some lines will be white, light yellow, and so we will need to have all these grays and browns and yellows, and they'll be combined together. So sometimes you can also use your finger to kind of like smudge and to kind of like make sure we have all these colors and lines and so on and so forth. That will really give a very nice kind of change within that area. So you can see right there, it is just one structure, but there's a lot of things going on there with the blending of all these different colors, with the leaving white, with the yellows and the orange and the grays and the browns, all being combined together using all these different techniques, and that will really give us this very nice kind of visual effect when we combine all these yellowish grays and browns and orange and all these different colors and different sizes for the bricks. As you can see right here, I'm just trying to finish up the final area, and you can see that these colors and these shapes are combining very well when I actually touch up all these different areas in order for them to be unified together. Hey everyone, it's KY Tom here. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed my video, please hit the like button and comment down below. Do consider to subscribe to my channel for more art videos. Check out the links on the description below to find out more about my art, and I hope to see you in the next one.